First of all, we'll start with the director of the film, Mordechai Vardi. Please join us. Thank you very much. I'm also going to invite up Saskia Keeley, who is a member of Roots and a photographer, and very honored to have her here as part of the conversation. And finally, someone you saw on the screen, please welcome Rabbi Hanan Schlesinger, who is one of the leaders of the Roots organization. I have a lot to ask, but I also want the audience to be a part of this conversation. But let's just start. What does, I mean, I think this film tells us a lot about Roots. What don't we know about Roots?
Well, I'll tell you that formally we call ourselves Roots Shorashim Dudor, the Israeli-Palestinian Grassroots Initiative for Understanding Nonviolence and Transformation. And Roots is a miracle. It's a miracle because it brings together not just Palestinians and Israelis, it brings together two sides, two peoples who were marginalized by the peace process, the people who are enemies of peace on both sides. The Israelis are people who look like me. Israeli settlers, we're religious Jews, we're deeply connected to land and Jewish history. Oslo marginalized us. You'd never think we'd be talking to the other side. On the Palestinian side, there's many refugee families who are marginalized by the peace process, many religious Muslims deeply connected to their history in the land. And now the two sides are talking together. We believe that if we can talk, then the rest of the country may follow us. And I want to tell you that almost every person that comes to Roots activities, whether it's Palestinians or Israelis, undergoes a change of identity, undergoes an inner kvetch, we say in Yiddish, a re-examination of who he is, because when you see the other, there's such a thing as Palestinians. They're human beings. They have a national story. They're suffering, they have national aspirations, they're connected to the land. You begin to realize as an Israeli settler that there's a black hole in what you thought about reality. We are not trained, we're not educated to see them as human beings, to see them as if they exist. And the same thing on the Palestinian side. They don't know our story. They don't know why we're so deeply connected to land. We don't see their story. And when you come face to face with the other, you realize that if you thought they're going to disappear tomorrow, they're not. They're for real. Not only are they not going to disappear, they belong in the land. And then all types of transformations inside begin to occur. And we use these transformations to begin to transform reality outside of us.
Thank you. Saskia, how did you get involved with Roots?
I met Hanan 2 years ago to the day in India through an organization called Leaders Quest. And he mentioned that the way they connect the people at Roots is through activities. So they have different camps and programs. And one of the programs is photography workshop for children, but they're only for young boys. And so we had the discussion, realizing that not many women come to the camp due to the tradition. So I offered 2 years ago in India my services to come and conduct photo workshop for Palestinian and Israeli women. So I went in 2016 for 2 weeks. I conducted 2 photo workshops that included 4 sessions. It was very successful, 15 participants. And so I went back this past summer for the same amount of time, for the same amount of workshops. And it was so inspiring. There were so many transformation and connections that were made that I will be going back again this coming year. And director Mordechai Vardi filmed me during this time. And I am so sorry that during this film, none of the activities are shown because they really show what connections and the humanity that can come through those meetings.
So that brings me to you, Mordechai. How did you get involved in this project and making this film specifically?
Okay, I started this project as a witness. When I heard about this initiative, I thought that, documentary film is not like news. News is about the present, and as I see it, documentary film is about the future, is about catching the moments that will influence the history. So I thought that in 100 years ago, there must be a change in the region, in the relationship between Israelis and Palestinians. And I thought that this initiative, there is a suggestion how to bring a change. So I started as a witness, and as the time goes by, I became involved emotionally. And I also brought Ali to my community. It was not easy. Some people were totally against bringing a Palestinian into a settlement. And when I asked somebody, why are you against it? Because, you know, so much Palestinians goes every day into our gates. And they tell me they're coming as workers. But this one, you gave him a microphone to speak with us as equal. And I thought that this is very important. And when I invited him, there was a big audience that came to speak with him. And it was in the middle of the Intifada, in the middle of the violence that was in the junction only 300 meters from Ali's field. So really, I think that I hope that this film will bring change of consciousness of people about seeing each other. I have a friend who is professor of psychology, and he made a research, and he found out that from the from the relations between people in the area, with the grassroots that comes from the field, it can bring a change. And his research is talking about the reality in Ireland, and there it worked. So I wanted to spread this idea of roots in a film inside Israel and all over the world. Maybe will bring a change.
I think the film is extremely impactful. It definitely takes us beyond the news, and I think humanizes both sides that desperately, unfortunately, need that, possibly because of the news. You mentioned Ali, of course, and he plays a big role in the film, and I feel like you focused on him a little bit more, possibly than on the settlers who can play a part. This is a big question. Ali's missing from this conversation. He was supposed to be here, and things have changed. Share with us a little bit of where Ali is today.
So this is very difficult for me to try and tell you what Ali is thinking. And anything I say will be slightly wrong. I'm just imagining in the back of my head, if he were sitting here and hearing me explaining him, of course he'll explain to me why I'm wrong. But this is the best I can do. Ali believes that there are two movements that has to happen for there ultimately to be a real reconciliation and peace process. Number one, the Palestinian street has to go beyond the victim mentality and take responsibility. They have to rise up and claim their rights non-violently with a sense of deep responsibility. In the Palestinian street, there has to be a sense of civic empowerment, that men and women and children understand who they are and understand how to get where they want to be non-violently. On the other hand, the other thing that has to happen is that Palestinians get to know Israelis and Israelis get to know Palestinians. Each side learns about the identity and the narrative and the truth of the other and finds empathy, finds room in their heart to see some legitimacy on the other side. Of those two movements or goals that I just talked about, one is roots. The second one, Israeli-Palestinian Local Initiative for Understanding Nonviolence and Transformation. The other goal that I talked about, the first goal that I mentioned, is being accomplished and is going to be further accomplished by the Palestinian National Nonviolent Movement called Change, in Arabic Tahrir, which was founded by Ali and a number of other Palestinians about a year after Roots was founded. These two movements have to grow in parallel, and one can't make the change without the other. And Ali has decided that there are others that can move roots forward at this point in history. There's lots of Palestinians and Israelis who've joined our burgeoning movement, and he felt that his efforts have to be devoted at this point to the Palestinian National Nonviolent Movement. So you'll ask, okay, that's all nice, but why is he not here? It's not just a matter of time and resources, it's also that. But for Ali to be an effective, powerful, persuasive leader in the Palestinian street, he can't be here. Because being here takes away from his credibility in the Palestinian street. He believes it's essential to talk to settlers, it's essential to talk to Israelis, but nevertheless, because of the anti-normalization movement, because of the prevailing wisdom in the Palestinian street that the settlers are evil, for him to be seen talking to settlers at this junction ruins his credibility in the Palestinian street, and it's most important for him to recruit Palestinians for the Palestinian National Nonviolent Movement. So thank God there are many other Palestinian leaders who are taking his place in Roots. He's no longer the director of Roots, he's the founding director, but now his older brother, who's seen in the film, is taking his place and doing a wonderful job of it. And Ali is on the other parallel course of building up the sense of Palestinian civic responsibility.
And Mordechai, you did applaud. You focused on why did you choose to focus on him specifically and not? I mean, I've seen a lot of movies about settlers, and these are not the movies. This is not the. I could see a whole movie just on hearing the settler side of this.
Ali's handsomer than I am.
From the beginning, I decided that the main character of my film must be a Palestinian. First of all, because he was the founder of this initiative, and it all takes place in his land. But the other thing is because I'm a settler, I didn't came with this film to speak about my narrative and my belief. I came to this film to listen to the other. And because I have the camera in my hand and I have the power, it's my duty to give the space to the other side, because this is the first step that we can engage by listening one another. And I have to give the example that I'm listening to him, and I give him all the space. And through my eyes, I want to bring his voice to my society. And that was very important for me.
Saskia, your reflection on Ali's decision?
Like all of us, I'm very taken by Ali, a very charismatic man, and I really feel for his path and the vision he has. So as a matter of fact, this past summer, I not only conducted for the workshops for Roots, but I also conducted for the workshops for Ali, for only Palestinian women. Because what Ali asked of me, saying, for him, Palestinian women are the greatest victims of the conflict because they live under Israeli occupation and they live in patriarchal societies with no equality and with limited rights.
Ma'am, if you interrupt, we're going to have to ask you to leave.
So yes, so to say I'm at this point committed to both movements. They are all to make the situation evolve, grow, and bring transformation and peace. So I am doing all of this.
Beautiful. I do want to open it to your questions. I'm going to ask one more question, but I'll take this opportunity to also remind everyone in the audience. I know it's a very emotional, loaded topic, and the only way this will work is if we actually respect each other and listen to one another. My final question before we open it to the audience, and then you guys are on your own, is this is, I mean, I consider you all to be extremely brave. This is not the popular voice that's being expressed that we saw here in the film, but the work that's being done on the ground. What do your neighbors think? What do your neighbors think? What are your communities? Are your communities, what kind of, I want to hear, I'm sure some of your neighbors say great and might not join you. But I want to hear some of the obstacles that you have from your side. And that's just, by the way, to all three of you and in your own communities.
Only the majority is against us, which means that there's a small but growing minority of people who join us. We do home meetings like you saw in the film, and people listen, many times with anger, with great resistance, but they realize that there's something they didn't know that's right in front of their eyes and they didn't see. There are Palestinians. People begin to join us. But still, it's a drop in a bucket. One by one, people come. Some people think that we're naive. Some people think that we're traitors. And I want to add that people who don't agree with us, there's nothing I can say to convince them. But what I can do is convince them to meet a Palestinian. And it's that human contact that opens up the window of the soul and softens one's consciousness to begin to see a different reality and another truth.
I can see that in my community, when I am a rabbi, not everybody loved the film, but everybody accept my involvement with this initiative. But what I can say that people who like the film is either in the left wing and the right wing, and the people who don't like the film is also from the left wing and from the right wing. So this film is not divided by left and right, and I see it as a success because maybe we have to go out of this pattern of left and right and try make a solution in another way, to look things in new eyes. I think if we humanize the situation, so new possibilities are open for us. Thank you.
In my case, these are willing participants that come to my workshops. So it really is all about human connections. They're already doing the work by coming. And so they participate. I'm not saying it's not coming with trepidation, but they're there because they are interested in meeting the other. And there are times, in one group this year, I lost 3 Palestinians during the first class because suddenly they realized that this was too much. It was going against what their society allows them to do, so they left. But in general, what I have seen during those sessions is really a connection and a sense of shared humanity that happens within those 4 sessions.
Thank you. We would love to take some. Oh, there are questions and comments. Imagine that. Please keep them respectful, short, because we're short for time, and try to make your speeches in the form of a question, as I like to say here. We have one right here.
So what I saw when I watched the film is that the Palestinian side seemed in terrible pain, and the Israeli side did not seem in the same kind of, I'm going to use the word agony. They just didn't seem in the same kind of pain. And what struck me, because my parents were Holocaust survivors, and most of my family that survived the Holocaust went to Israel. We ended up in America, and I think that wasn't addressed there. I think so much of the pain and the resistance in Israel is about the Holocaust, and I was just wondering why that wasn't addressed at all. So that was my question.
למה אין התייחסות לשון? I can say that my mother was in Auschwitz, so I know the Holocaust from home. I don't know if it's really in my point of view, it's really directly connected. It's another thing. It's about our existence in Israel, and well, maybe somehow it's the fear that we feel all the time that about our existence somewhere is there. But if you ask, yes, I think I bring some of the feeling of the fear of the violence in the junction, but really I was focusing on listening to the other. So this was my point of view. I think Ali took a big risk when he put in my hand and let me shoot him because, you know, he put his life on my hand because in my editing, I could bring him out as a traitor. But really, I was very careful, and everything in this film, Alice saw this film, and you have to agree with every scene in the film because I didn't want to harm him. And you can say that this film is a document, which is the first document that was agreed between settlers and Palestinians. So.
And please add to that. Let's also say we filmed him, not shoot him, because might be interpreted differently. Yes, please.
You see that I'm not an English speaker, so.
No, it's usually correct. Hold on, we have.
I want to add to Rav Mordechai's answer. Part of the common Palestinian narrative is that the state of Israel was created only because of the Holocaust, because of the Jewish loss, and the Palestinians are paying the price for the evil that the Europeans did. In our dialogues in Roots, I try and give a different perspective. I don't talk about the Holocaust. I talk about 3,000 years of Jewish history, and I talk about Jewish connectedness to the land. I talked about Abraham and Sarah. So we are trying to go beyond that narrative that everything started just a few years ago. The Jewish identity in the land is deeply rooted, and it's not just about the Holocaust.
We have a question up on top. I'm sorry, we can't turn this now into a dialogue. Please, up on top. Thank you.
I found this film truly inspiring and moving.
Gil, can you stand up?
Sure.
I recognize your voice, but we can't see you.
I'm sorry. You'd see surprised that I'm speaking up, but there was a time when I was the first questioner.
Let's get to the question. Thank you.
As I said, I found this film really inspiring and moving. I was particularly moved by the number of settlers who talked about ending the occupation, which is, I think, an entirely new idea for many of them. My question is, beyond the empathy that they demonstrated for the Palestinians' plight and beyond the recognition of the power imbalance between them, what are they actually doing to end the occupation? And what do they mean when they say the occupation should end?
This could be a very long answer. We have a short amount of time. But I say as follows, this is my personal opinion. I am not sure if the land is occupied, but the Palestinian people are certainly living under occupation. And what that means is we have to work for human rights. We have to work for equality for the Palestinians. We have to work for the end of military rule. So we're at the very beginning of trying to figure out how do we hold in our minds and hearts at the same time the truth of our connection to the land, but the truth that the way that we are serving our connection to the land is doing injustice to another people. How do we remain rooted in our homes and our connection to the land of Israel, but at the same time find room for another people to live there with equal rights and justice? What are we doing? I don't think we're working to end the occupation. I don't think we figured that out yet. We're working in little cases, little matters of trying to bring more justice to the Palestinians under the present circumstances. We're creating channels of communication between local Palestinian mayors and local Israeli mayors for cooperative efforts. We're creating channels of communication between local Palestinian mayors and the military commanders so the Palestinians can express their grievances and the Israeli army commanders can hear what they can do under the present circumstances to make life a little bit better. It's not enough. I agree. This is just the beginning. Come back another year.
Question up on top.
I have a question for you. You gave as an answer to the Palestinians that it wasn't about the Holocaust. It was about 3,000 years ago that the land was promised to the Jews. Now, you may think of this as a far better answer, but I'm sitting here as a secular Jew and thinking, who cares? And the Palestinian that you're saying, oh, sorry, we were here 3,000 years ago, it's ours. Do you feel that this is a satisfactory answer, an answer that's more convincing than the Holocaust?
The answer to that is actually very simple. I'll be a little bit blasphemous. It doesn't matter if God exists or not. It doesn't matter if God promised the land or not. What matters is that millions of Jews think that God promised us the land. What matters is that in Jewish history, we have been in the land for 1,000 years. In other words, it's the narrative, it's the identity. Just like I have to come to terms with a Palestinian identity. I may not like it, I may not think that it's based on history, but that's who the people think they are, and I have to deal with that. They're not going to disappear. Their truth is not going to disappear. Their narrative and self-understanding is not going to disappear. The same thing on the Jewish side. It doesn't matter if God exists or not, but there's enough people that feel that way that we have to deal with them.
He's handling this very well, but if ever you need to jump in, I'm just letting you know. It's okay. You have microphones. Where's our next question? I'll take one. If a microphone is given to you by...
Voice is very loud.
We need to read.
All right. Just to follow up on that, would you live if as a settler you believe that the land belonged to the settler, to the settler Jews? Would you live under Palestinian government, a Palestinian nation, saying, okay, I live here, that's my land, but I follow the laws of the Palestinian. Would you accept that? And the second question that I wanted to ask, for you put Gush Etzion as the name of the settler, but you didn't give it as the Arab name neither. So that was also a discrepancy. And where do those children of Arab go to school? Because our children, I mean, I consider myself our children, they don't go and learn how to kill. What do they learn in their schools to come back and be so angry to kill at 14 years old? I'm sorry, 3 questions in a row.
You said many things.
She pitched the ball.
I'll just tell you that after seeing how my people who have military and political power behave towards the Palestinians, I wouldn't want to live under those conditions. And if the Palestinians had power, if they'd behave like my people behaving towards them, I wouldn't want to live under those conditions. So to answer your question, I don't know. Because part of my identity is not only the deep historical, religious connection to the land, it's also the need of living in a Jewish state under Jewish sovereignty. Rabbi Menachem Fruman, whose memory was mentioned in the movie, did say he'd be willing to live under Palestinian sovereignty. I don't know for myself, but I know that 99% of my settler community would not be interested in that.
We have time. I know there's a lot of hands, but we have time for one more question here.
Rather than we seem to, most of the time in Israel, be focusing inwards and how do we solve that problem, as opposed to looking outwards, which the director sort of mentioned. I don't know how many post-baby boomers know, but that the Germany and France were at each other's throats for hundreds of years over the Saar Basin. But the Foreign Minister Schuman and Adenauer got together, created just for that problem, rather than the whole macro issue of the European coal community. And from that ended up the European Union. And the US, instead of doing reparations demanding from Germany, like the First World War, created the Marshall Plan. So why isn't there not more time and effort spent in looking to see, well, what did other people do? Not just we, but other, where it was so successful, like Ireland, etc. And when you talk about leadership, that's what leaders are supposed to do, and maybe providing specificity instead of just discussions and talking and come up with concrete results, which we call takeaways. Start small, then get big.
I will just tell you, there's a bill in the US Congress being considered now for the creation of an international peace fund to provide billions of dollars for grassroots peace efforts, and that is based on the model of Northern Ireland. I urge everyone to support that bill, call their congressman. We need the money.
Folks, there's a lot of hands out, and actually there is more to do.